Te iti me te rahi tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā hoki o tātou mate huhua, haere i ngā mate haere hoatu. Tātou ngā kanohi o rātou mā huri nā. Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Welcome everybody, I'm David Clark, I'm the Chief Commissioner of the Transport Accident Investigation Commission. The four-member commission is a standing commission of inquiry which is tasked with investigating certain maritime, aviation and rail accidents and incidents in order to determine their circumstances and causes. Our investigations seek to identify any safety issues and will make recommendations where we consider useful and necessary to promote safety within the New Zealand transport sector. Our investigation into the grounding of the inter-island ferry Aratere is continuing, but today we're releasing an interim factual report in relation to that grounding. Establishing the facts of an accident or incident is the key first step in the investigative process and is the basis on which the analysis of lines of inquiry, requirements for further evidence and safety issues can be based. While we don't often produce interim factual reports, we will do when we consider that the scope and complexity of an investigation demands it and where public interest is served by doing so. Today's report sets out the facts that have been established to date by the Commission's investigation in what happened in the immediate lead-up to the grounding of the Aratere. It draws on evidence from the ship's voyage data recorder, the steering control system and numerous interviews undertaken by our investigation team. As I say, the Commission's inquiry is ongoing, and with investigations of this nature and complexity, there's always more to learn than the proximate events that are set out in our report. Accidents are really the consequence of a single event or a single action. Identifying safety issues and lessons requires a complex analysis of the interplay between factors that are drawn out of the lines of inquiry, and that is the part of the process that the Commission is now undertaking. Once complete, we will set out in our final report all the causes and circumstances of the grounding, along with any safety issues and lessons we identify and any recommendations we might make. That will include all evidence and our supporting analysis. Due to the complexity of this investigation, completion of the analysis and the lines of inquiry and the collection of further evidence, the final report is likely to take some time, which is one of the reasons we're publishing an interim factual report today. However, if we were to identify any immediate and significant safety issues during the course of our investigation, we would not wait until the publication of the final report to raise them and have them addressed. The Commission has been well supported in the development and publication of this report by an investigation team of experienced and skilled maritime investigators. And I'm joined today by Naveen Kasapakalam, our Chief Investigator of Accidents, who will talk to the factual findings and matrix set out in our report. Thanks, Naveen.
Thank you, Chief Commissioner, and kia ora, good afternoon. I will be presenting the sequence of events that led to the grounding of the inter-islander passenger ferry, the Aratere. In May 2024, the Aratere was upgraded with a new steering control system. This new system was designed to work with the ship's existing autopilot and integrated bridge navigation system. Following the installation over the next 3 weeks, the Aratere successfully completed 83 Cook Strait crossings. This is a diagram of the ship's bridge showing the control stations from the bridge for the bridge team and the systems they were handling. Aratere's night master was in command for the 9:20 p.m. sailing from Picton to Wellington on 21st June 2024. The night master was co-piloting and supervising another master. The other master was refamiliarizing themselves with the Aratere. This master, referred to as the refamiliarization master in this report, was the designated pilot for this voyage. At the central steering console, a deck rating, the helmsman, was responsible for steering the vessel. These three were assisted by the officer of the watch and another deck rating who was on lookout duties. The image you see here is a screen grab from the electronic chart display and information system, also known as the ECDIS. Aratere's planned course was programmed into the track pilot and displayed on the ECDIS. It shows the pilot, in this case the refamiliarization master. It shows them the information they need for their job, like the vessel's course, the position, speed, rate of turn, the water depth, radar, etc., and so on. The red line here. So the red line here is the course programmed in the ship's track pilot module as a series of waypoints joining the course lines. Each turn is an arc starting at the wheel over point. Here, if we zoom in, Here, if we zoom in, I've highlighted the programmed courses in red, the land in green, and the shallow water in blue. The red circles are the waypoints, and the short red lines across the course are the wheel over points for when the autopilot needs to start making each turn. On passing each waypoint, the autopilot, and this is really important, the autopilot automatically locks onto the next waypoint. With autopilot engaged and in course mode, as the ship approaches each waypoint, the bridge team needs to push something called the execute button, and that will initiate the turn. Aratere was just past its second waypoint at Mabel Island when the autopilot was engaged at 21:26:01. This put the steering for the Aratere under the control of the autopilot, not the helmsman. About 30 seconds later, the refamiliarization master pressed the execute button. But Aratere had already passed Mabel Island 36 seconds earlier. So pushing the execute told the autopilot to make the turn for the Snout Headland waypoint. And that turned the vessel to starboard onto a course of 73.8 degrees towards land, not 33 degrees towards Snout. Around 31 seconds after the execute command, the night master saw Aratere was heading towards shore and called the helmsman back to the center steering console. The helmsman, the officer of the watch, and the night master each pressed the takeover button with the wheel hard aport. Still, all to no effect. Aratere continued turning towards shore. The bridge team were trying to transfer steering control from the track pilot console to the central steering console, but to do that, the new steering system required them to either set the same rudder command at both consoles or hold down the takeover button for 5 seconds. The bridge team did not know this. They did not know that they didn't know this. At 21:27:43, the Aratere was heading towards shore at 13 knots. With the helmsman lacking steering control, the night master put both engines at full astern. It took 21 seconds for the port propeller and 38 seconds for the starboard propeller to begin turning astern. Finally, at 21:28:06, manual steering mode was re-established. This is when the crew regained control of the vessel. The port rudder moved hard aport, the starboard rudder moved to port, and the night master instructed the officer of the watch to start the bow thruster to assist with maneuvering. By 21:28:34, the Aratere had slowed to about 7 knots at the 10-meter sounding and progressively slowing down, and by 21:28:50, the vessel grounded. Aratere's hull remained watertight, but there was damage to the bulbous bow, that's the front portion of the vessel, and that required repair. There were no injuries. In the following 48 hours, authorities successfully refloated the Aratere using 2 Picton-based harbour tugs. So that's the sequence of events leading and immediately after the grounding of the Aratere. And now, look, I'll hand back to the Chief Commissioner.
Thank you, Naveen. It's worth noting out of that factual matrix that the time frame between the execute button being pushed and the crew regaining control was only a fraction over 2 minutes. The crew at that time were operating under extraordinary circumstances, but their actions significantly mitigated the effect of the grounding, their actions in that period. It's now been 4 months since the Commission commenced its inquiry, and in that time the investigation team has been on board the Aratere twice, once when it was grounded. They've also extracted and reviewed the data from the Aratere systems and conducted a number of interviews. The Commission sought comments on the draft of this report from interested parties and considered those before finalising the report in the form that is being published today. Evidence collections continuing across multiple lines of inquiry, including the history, performance, maintenance and design of the vessel and its systems, the sea and weather conditions, safety and training systems and culture and regulations and rules. Our analysis of the evidence as it comes to light is also continuing so that we can determine the circumstances and causes and identify safety issues and make recommendations if necessary. Our final report will include all of that detail and analysis and will be publicly released in order to contribute to the safety of the New Zealand transport sector. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, David, here it says the bridge team basically didn't know about this holding the button down or aligning the rudders. I know you can't apportion blame, but did they tell you they hadn't been trained in it?
Yeah, so that will form part of our inquiry towards the final report. But at this stage, what we have established is that they did not know that they had to hold the button down, nor were they aware that they did not know.
Have you asked about the navigation, the team that put the system in? Have you actually asked them why they didn't train the people up appropriately on that?
Yeah, look, we have. Sorry. We have asked those questions as part of the evidence gathering process, but the Commission's inquiry goes through a rigorous analysis process as well, and it would be too early for us to make a determination on that.
Was anyone at Kiwi Rail aware of that new requirement around the takeover mode?
That's going to form part of our lines of inquiry. So what we've established to date is in our report, but certainly those are the sort of questions that will form part of our further inquiries and evidence gathering.
What normally would be the role of a co-pilot on the bridge? Would, in this instance, this person was supervising a refamiliarisation pilot. Did the co-pilot normally have additional duties that they would have to carry out? So perhaps his supervising role would be curtailed in some way?
The co-pilot in this case was the master of the Aratere. The master has final command of the vessel and is the final decision maker on board the ship. At the time of the accident, the master was carrying out an additional function of familiarising another master. And that is a separate process to the events that happened on the day.
It sounds like a lot went on within, 2 minutes, and it sounds like you think that the crew were quite quick thinking. What could have been the worst outcome here? You said that they mitigated things, but what could have potentially happened?
Well, so the actions the crew took that led to the mitigation were the immediate reversing of the engines and the slowing, so that at the grounding the vessel was travelling at less than 3 knots. So if those sections hadn't been taken, it would have been travelling at a significantly higher rate, which would have resulted in potentially greater damage to the vessel, but to speculate on that's probably not helpful.
There is asymmetric thrust. There's a footnote saying that the starboard propeller or gearbox was running on reduced thrust. Did that contribute to the faster rate of turn to starboard?
Yeah, look, those are all real good questions, and that will form a key part of our inquiry. We'll be looking into the impact that the reduced the reduced power generation as a result, the thrust developed by the propeller, and the impact that may have on the manoeuvrability of the vessel.
What kind of visual indicators are there to the people on the bridge around the direction that the rudder is currently pointing, opposed to what their console is pointing, to get it within 2 degrees for that takeover process?
Oh, there are rudder indicators on the bridge to show the direction and position of both the starboard and propeller rudders that can be easily viewed by the master who is con of the vessel.
Can they be viewed from all consoles?
Look, these are all aspects that we will be going into with commissioners, analysing the event and what was available to them. So I think it's prudent not to comment on it at this stage.
Was the person in charge of the autopilot, the track pilot, ever asked to use the toggle to manually override the direction or adjust the course? And was that tried? Would that little toggle have done anything to the direction of the ship?
That's, again, part of our lines of inquiry. Those questions will need to be answered, and they are being asked.
There's no mention in this report of crew member or someone going for a coffee break. Did you ever investigate that claim, and did you find any evidence of that?
So the report includes all the evidence we obtained from interviews with crew members and the data from the ship, and it is the entirety of that evidence that we were able to establish.
What did the crew members say about that? Say there was no coffee, just because otherwise it's... Can you, like, on the microphone saying there was no coffee break involved?
Yeah, did you investigate that claim?
Yeah. So the sequence... So just want to remind that this is the interim report, and what we try and establish in the interim report is a sequence of events and the facts and the evidence that we've collected to date. The narrative is described in the body of the report, and I think that's the Commission's view at this stage.
So did you find any evidence of this speculation around coffee break?
I would refer you back to the interim report and the narrative as described in the interim report to answer your question.
Just going back to you saying the crew didn't know that they didn't know how to turn off the autopilot, does that suggest a failure of training on KiwiRail's end?
Again, that's one of the lines of inquiry we're following to understand why it was that the crew were in that position. But we don't currently have the answer to that. That's part of the ongoing analysis.
Was that surprising to you that they didn't know? Or was it kind of reasonable?
Well, for the safe operation of a ship, the procedures need to be well described, the procedures need to be actioned, and all of those attributes go towards maintaining safe voyage. And so we will be looking at each of those aspects to determine if any of them had gaps on this occasion.
Would you please, for our understanding, please clarify at points 1.21 and 1.22 with the track pilot, when it's in coursal track mode, at 1.22 it then says once the waypoint is passed, the track pilot automatically locks onto the radius into the next waypoint. Does it initiate any change to the rudder direction at that point, or is it just programming the autopilot to say, there's your next waypoint, if you press the execute button, I'll turn there? I don't know if that question made any sense. But
It did. It's a good question, and the answer is no. No. So the track pilot, any change in course will have to be initiated by the bridge team.
Okay. Because otherwise the ship would have to go back to 180 or something.
The ship will continue on the track that it's set at that time.
Thank you.
But because the execute button was pressed when it was, it thought it was at that later waypoint, right? So it executed the turn earlier than...
That's correct.
So are you saying that the execute button was pushed at the wrong time as well?
We are saying that the autopilot was engaged at 21:26:01 when the ship was on a heading of 28 degrees, and the execute button was pressed about 36 seconds after the vessel passed Mabel Island.
21, 27, when the Nightmaster notes Ectus shows the wrong track, what direction was the ship headed at that point? What was the course it was heading?
Towards land.
So it was
At 73.8 degrees.
at 21, 27 it was
Correct.
heading to. What's the usual process that people on the bridge should follow after pressing the execute button? Should they be monitoring the rate of turn, or would you normally expect it would take 30 seconds to figure that you'd gone too far?
All of that will be all of those analysis and what is best practice would be covered in the Commission's final report into this inquiry.
What would normally be the role of the co-pilot in that instance, or the pilot in that instance? Would one of them be assigned to monitoring rates of turn?
I think it wouldn't be appropriate for the Commission to comment on what the co-pilot should and should not have done for a factual interim report that simply states the sequence of events that led to the accident. But however, the questions you've asked will be covered during the analysis phase of the final report.
But it's fair to say, right, you're both, I think, captains of big ships, that when you turn a ship, it doesn't just turn straight away. It takes a while for that to actually turn, is that right?
But it depends on a number of things. It depends on the type of rudder. It depends on the rudder angle, the rate of turn of the rudder. So each ship has its own specific characteristics.
One more question. The others?
Coffee. No idea.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I did have one more question.
Oh, ask me, I might know. You never know your luck.